Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of All Angles. I'm Dion Jackson Miller. So lots of concerns in terms of what's happening in Jamaica in relation to our water supply, as well as temperatures, drought, heat, and so on. Alarming news coming out recently from the World Meteorological Organization, which is predicting that over the next 5 years, global temperatures could rise to record levels. And we're going to be talking about some of those issues on today's edition of the program. With me in studio, we have the Deputy Dean of the Faculty of Science and Technology at the University of the West Indies Mona campus. She's also co-director of the Climate Studies Group at Mona, Professor Tanisha Stevenson. Later in the program, we'll hear from the Water Minister. We'll also hear from the National Water Commission and the Water Resources Authority. Before all of that, though, why the prediction of the possibility of record high global temperatures, the combination of greenhouse gases and something called El Nino, a weather phenomenon? The CNN has this brief explainer.
We've heard so much talk about El Nino, but what is it? In fact, it's a weather phenomenon that happens between the Pacific Ocean and the atmosphere. It can have an influence on the temperature and the weather all over the world. In July, temperatures were much warmer than normal. In fact, some areas in deep red were running 3 to 5 degrees above normal. This is because of El Nino. In the springtime, the trade winds start to relax, and in a normal year, they come back during the Asia monsoon in the summer. During an El Nino year, they don't. In fact, some years, the trade winds can even reverse. That has a huge impact on the Pacific Ocean. During a normal year, warm water is pooled on the west side of the ocean, cooler water on the east side. That results in cooler waters off the coast of California and warmer waters in the western Pacific. During an El Nino year, that thermocline tilt goes away, and so warm water is spilled all the way over to the east side of the Pacific. That increases convection. It also brings thunderstorms to the coast of California and droughts to the western side of the Pacific. We all know that El Nino will impact the world. The only question is, how will it affect you?
Okay, and that's a perfect segue to my introduction here with Professor Stevenson. How will it impact you, she asked. And in fact, in a statement that the Climate Studies Group put out, you in fact said that the Caribbean has to pay attention, and that we've seen previous El Ninos, and we saw in that explainer video, she said the return of El Nino. So what have we seen, first of all, in the past?
All right, so thank you for having me on your program. So in the past, we have seen that once we have had an El Nino event, it has tended to bring drier conditions over the Caribbean. Because as she has explained, it changes circulation. And one of the things it means for us is that we have more sinking air in the Caribbean. For us, drier conditions. But another thing it does is it changes upper level winds, increases them, so that the difference we have between upper and lower level winds creates greater shear, tearing storms apart when they try to form during our Atlantic hurricane season.
That sounds like a good thing.
For us, it is. And so we end up with a smaller number of storms coming through our area. Another thing it does is it increases heat in our region. Because of the warming in the Pacific, it's releasing more heat in the atmosphere. And that heat causes a warming of the atmosphere, and so we feel hotter as well.
Wow, now that can't be good, especially given the concerns we've been having about drought.
Absolutely. And so what it means for us is, as we look at the possibility of relief from drought with early rains in May that we're hoping for, it will mean that we will swing again into a drier period, and that has implications for us, whether it is water availability, crops, tourism, any number of areas it will affect us in. And when something you spoke of earlier, we are anticipating hotter temperatures, but hotter on top of an increase in temperature trend due to climate change. And so it has implications of getting even warmer than we have already experienced.
The Secretary General of the WMO, the World Meteorological Organization, said this: a warming El Nino is expected to develop in coming months. This will combine with human-induced climate change to push global temperatures into uncharted territory. He said it will have far-reaching repercussions for health, food security, water management, and the environment, we need to be prepared. So before I get to the preparation bit, what kind of implications are we talking about here? I mean, that's far-ranging: health, food security, water management, the environment.
So remember, something that we have proposed as a region, as small island states, is that we constrain global warming to 1.5 degrees and no more than 2 degrees. What we're seeing with the combination of increasing temperatures due to climate change, and on top of that, an El Nino putting additional heat in our atmosphere, is that there's a possibility of us passing 1.5 degrees, changing temperatures globally. Remember that even at those temperatures, it was a concession for the Caribbean to propose those temperatures because it has implications for biodiversity. There are some plants and animal species that can't survive under those conditions. Consider coral bleaching, for example. Consider the health of our forests. Consider human health. So there are any number of systems that even at 1.5 degrees will be constrained.
Wow. So what does that mean then? When the Secretary General says we need to be prepared, how do you prepare yourself, first of all, for what is a naturally occurring phenomenon, which El Nino is?
Because of our understanding of what to expect, based on research we have done on previous El Nino events, it means that if we can anticipate a drier Caribbean or a drier Jamaica, then we start taking steps now to treat with water and water availability. It could mean, wherever possible, increased catchment. Since we may get some relief with rainfall that we're seeing right now, we need to ensure we have good catchment right now. We need to conserve from now, because again, we're talking dry conditions. It means we start thinking about the crops that we will be planting. These must be crops that can deal with drought conditions and drier, hot, drier conditions. And so when we have such a statement, it is suggesting to us that if we already have a good idea of what an El Nino does for the Caribbean, hotter and drier, then we can start taking the necessary steps so that as this unfolds, we're in a better position to treat with it.
That sounds though as if we need some kind of multi-sectoral emergency plan.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things we want to point to coming out of the release. Since we can anticipate from previous El Ninos the kind of effects we have seen in the region, then different sectors, it can't just be sectoral and within a particular sector, but cross sectors, we need to start considering, given a hotter, drier scenario later on in the year, what should we be doing upstream so that we can better handle this downstream. Because
I think one of the things when we talk about climate change, we're still thinking in terms of years and the future. But this sounds like an immediate emergency, and I heard you mention later down in the year, because I wanted to go into that a little bit more in terms of when would we be expecting to see all of this.
All right, so right now the El Nino is still developing.
Okay.
And the anticipation is as we move into the middle of summer, we should see even greater development, and maybe we see signs of it emerging. And so what it will mean then is the temperatures that we're anticipating in the summer, it will be hotter temperatures, and this will continue, as Jackie said earlier this week, into November, for example. And so we're anticipating that we should start seeing some of this unfold in about midsummer. But right now, like the globe, we're watching what is going on over the Pacific and how quickly the El Nino will develop.
So going back to the issue of the response, how do you think that needs to be approached in a little bit more detail, whether nationally or also on a regional basis?
Both, in fact. So nationally, we do need to look across different sectors and agencies that are key to our different sectors that are important, especially for economic development. So our water, our health, our tourism, our agriculture become important. And having those meetings that will help us collectively plan for a hotter and drier Caribbean. But it also means that we must do so regionally, because it's not an effect that will be constrained to Jamaica. It is a regional effect. And so there is power, there are benefits for us to tackling it regionally, especially if we may have to be sharing resources and just helping each other get through the next couple of months as best as possible.
What about on an individual and household level? At that level, should we be trying to prepare?
Absolutely. We're talking about warmer temperatures that we're already feeling. And so some of the medical expertise coming to us is staying out of the outdoors as much as possible. It is treating with how we treat water. We all have personal responsibility to conserve the water that we have, because water is an issue of the future. As we and the present, as we contend with hotter temperatures, how we manage our energy, because our energy bills will be reflecting that we're getting warmer. So there are some things we have to do at a household level, even as we contend with what we're already feeling, and as we prepare for the deficits in water that we'll be experiencing in the future, and the hotter temperatures that we're going to be experiencing later down in the year.
Are you worried?
No, I'm not worried. For us to know what is coming gives us an opportunity to plan for it. And so, because we are more aware of what we have seen in the past with El Nino, I am heartened that we are ahead of the game, and if we can act now, we're going to be in a better position later on in the year.
All right, going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much, Professor. We appreciate it. Stay tuned. Still to come in the program, we'll hear from the Water Commission, the Water Resources Authority. In the next segment, the Water Minister talks to us. Stay tuned. Remember, our hashtag is TVJ. All angles soon come.